Okay, and has been doing incredible work there through community law Wellington and Hutt Valley, particularly in supporting migrant women who are victims or survivors of family violence. Dhilum has a strong sense of social justice, cultural awareness, and sensitivity, and is immensely proud of her Sri Lankan heritage. Tonight, she will shed light on the complex intersection of family law and immigration law, drawing from her vast experience and deep commitment to social justice. Please join me in welcoming Dhilum Nightingale. Yay! So yeah, now all yours.
Tēnā koutou katoa, no he raka tipuna no poneke hou ke taputaranga o he noho ana tukatoro a ka tamariki ko Dhilum Nightingale toko ingoa. No reira tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Dhilum Nightingale. I come from Sri Lanka. I live in Wellington, and I have 3 teenage children. Real pleasure to be here, and it's always just so enriching to be speaking to a room, even a virtual room of ethnic women. And sorry, I can only actually see about 6 screens, so might be making an assumption there, but it really is, and I'm going to go a little bit off script today because, and I hope Silvana won't get angry with me, but I've just been reflecting quite a bit about that lately, because I've been doing a research project actually with Silvana and her team, and the research project is on the barriers and challenges that ethnic women face when they report family violence, sexual violence, and they go through a family court process. What are the particular barriers that they face that are perhaps different to, the barriers that women who are not from ethnic communities face? And so far, we've conducted about 10 or 11 interviews. We still have quite a few more to go. But one of the things that's really coming out very strongly from the interviews so far is, yes, our systems are difficult to navigate. It's really easy for agencies to, not maliciously, but to send people to various places because they can kind of help with this issue, and actually their issues are like this, and we know their issues are like this, but there isn't like one place that a woman can go to get all of the support and help she needs, and that's a reality of the system. But there are so many compounding and intersecting issues that I think that we who are advocates in this space do really need to think about how we can provide a more holistic, connected service for women in need. We know that for women, their abuser, the perpetrator, will often use immigration as a tool of control. He will know that their visa, their right to be in New Zealand, is dependent on them, and he the proverbial he is stooping to levels I have never seen before to actually exert power and control. I'm hearing that men are ringing up, and look, I'm using gendered language, and I'm not making any apologies for that because we know these issues disproportionately impact women. And it's International Women's Day tomorrow, so I'm I'm using gendered language, and actually 100% of the women I've supported over the years through community law have all been women. So anyway, I won't go on about that. I'm talking about women as victim survivors here. So they will ring up immigration and they will say, oh, look, you might get a visa from her. She's a scammer. She's completely making it up. We were never in a relationship. She's only doing this because she wants to stay in New Zealand. So look, we know that happens, but I'm now hearing stories of men contacting the police in India or some government department in Pakistan and saying, you know, there's possibly money exchanging hands. I don't know, or it's just nepotism. I don't know what it is. But basically saying if she contacts you and wants a birth certificate, wants a police certificate, you know, you don't issue it to her. I'm hearing things like this happening now. There is these tentacles of power and control. I am observing that they are just getting deeper and more extreme. And these are the sorts of things that victim survivors of family violence who are in New Zealand and who are not from ethnic communities, they're not probably going to be facing issues like this. Because they don't have the immigration issues also, they don't have to deal with those at the same time. I am also seeing, so other examples, maybe recent examples that I've seen, and I spoke about this case in the interview this morning. There was a woman from Pakistan, and she if she went home as a divorced, separated or divorced woman, she came from a very, very traditional conservative family, and by that I mean her broader family. Her ex-husband's family were incredibly conservative. She had death threats against her. She knew if she went back home, there was a really, really likely chance she would get killed. If she wasn't killed, she'd be under the complete control of her uncles, her of kind of all the men in her family, right? Because she had brought dishonor on them for leaving the marriage. That was how they saw it. But so to get a family violence residence visa, you need to prove that you would face stigma, social stigma if you returned home, or you wouldn't be able to financially support yourself. It is so well documented that separated and divorced women face such extreme stigma when they go home. But how long did it take Immigration New Zealand to consider and decide on her visa? It took them 18 months. 18 months to confirm what any simple Google research will tell you. I mean, sure, if you want to go to published articles and academics who focus on this area, there's probably more written about this for women in Pakistan than there is anyone else in the world. And why did it take Immigration New Zealand 18 months to decide her case? The trauma that she had to go through while she was waiting for residency, the difficulties with getting housing, with getting work. When you're given a work visa, a family violence work visa, even, it's for 6 months. It's so difficult to find employment when your visa is only for 6 months. She when she had this visa, she was able to access an emergency benefit, and that's good. But she has to ring up every single week to access this benefit, and sometimes the payments don't fall through. And that means that she can't pay her rent that week. And she is just beside herself going, am I going to get kicked out? And am I going to be homeless? All of this stress, that she's going through. And I'm like, Immigration New Zealand, it is so well known what will happen if a woman who is separated returns to Pakistan. Why are you taking 18 months to decide her application? Another example I wanted to talk about briefly is there was a very shocking ombudsman case note that came out at the end of last year. so, and it was a shame. I wanted to talk about this morning, but we ran out of time. But basically, there were a group of men that complained to the ombudsman because their former partners had applied for a family violence visa, and this visa was granted. And in case you don't know, it's really hard to get one of these visas. You need to have 2 statutory declarations from professionals who work in the area, and there's a narrow class of professionals. I think it's outrageous that Shama is not on this list. Absolutely outrageous. But Shakti is on the list, and sometimes it's very difficult to actually get Shakti to provide a declaration. Women's Refuge is there, which is good. If you're a counsellor, you can provide one, but you need to be an NZAC registered counsellor. If you're a social worker, great, but you need to be a specific type of social worker. So it's a narrow list, right? It's really hard to get one of these declarations. And on top of that, the woman has to basically prove the level, a threshold that's akin to refugee asylum status. She needs to prove that she cannot return home because of the stigma she would face, or that she'd have no means of supporting herself financially. So anyway, it's hard to get one of these visas was the message I wanted to convey there. But this group of men, their ex-partners have got this visa, and they complained to the ombudsman because they said nobody told us that she was applying for this visa, and we needed to be able to respond to her allegations. We needed to have an opportunity to comment on her visa application. And all of us, right? All of us will know just how dangerous that is. You're going through a process. You've recently separated from an abusive person. You're going through this process, which is incredibly stressful and traumatic. You're recovering from family violence. And really, the perpetrator of the abuse is allowed to know that you have applied for this visa? That is unfortunately what the ombudsman's decision said. It said that there should be case-by-case consideration. And so where an applicant for a visa has no issues of safety or privacy, that in those cases, natural justice should allow the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator to have notice that she's made a visa application. This is absolutely incredibly fraught, and I don't need to explain why to you, but you know, te aurere kura, as we all know, requires or prioritizes the safety of women, and says that we all need to be doing more as an entire society to ensure the safety of women. How is this ombudsman's decision going to ensure the safety of women? How is it culturally responsive and supportive of what women are going through? We know that just how difficult it is for women to leave when they're dependent on their partner for their visa and their right to be in New Zealand. We know how hard it is for them to leave a violent relationship already. They are worried like anything that they could be separated from their children. Their children might be New Zealand citizens and they might be separated from them. They are incredibly worried about the stigma, or about it being out in the open that they have left their marriage and that they've been abused. They'll be worried about housing, they'll be worried about money. There's so many things to worry about. And now they have to worry about their abuser potentially knowing that they've made this application. So this community law centres, Aotearoa, the national umbrella group, is actively talking to the ombudsman about this and trying to get them to change their mind. For to their merit, it seems so far that Immigration New Zealand has not acted on this case note, but they have said that they will consider it as part of the broader review that will eventually happen into the family violence visa. But you know, these examples, to me, they are just some examples, and I know you will each have many, many, many more of how our legal and our justice systems are failing, um, women who are victims of family violence. All of these things compound to present yet another barrier that prevents a woman from leaving an abusive relationship. And I think that these particular challenges, issues, awful experiences that ethnic and migrant women experience, I think that it is, well, I can only speak for myself. But I am doing this work because I think that it is incumbent on me as an ethnic woman to help be a voice on these issues, throw light on them, because they are often, unfortunately, completely blind and remain unseen otherwise, because they're not part of a day-to-day Pakeha worldview and experience. I know I'm almost out of time. Actually, the other one that I just really briefly wanted to mention, and this is actually going more to the topic that Silvana asked me to talk about, the intersection of family and immigration law. The systems don't talk to each other. They don't talk to each other, and it's just easy or convenient, or I don't know what it is, but for an issue on the family law side to kind of go, oh, that's an immigration matter, they can deal with that over there. And for the immigration side to go, oh no, that's a family law matter, they can deal with it over there. And I want to just maybe talk about just one, possibly two quick examples of this. So the immigration instructions, which is a set of rules, for visas, that says if a woman wants to include a child in her family violence residency application, she has to prove she has a statutory right to custody. That is the language in the rules. Custody is not a term that's used in the family court or in family proceedings. It might have been a term from 30 years ago or 20 years ago, but it's not a term that's used now. It's care and protection. This language has been in these rules for years and years and years, and Immigration New Zealand has been told that this is archaic language. And it's not only archaic language, but it results in real confusion on such an important issue, right? A woman's right to include her child in her residency application. This language needs to be incredibly clear and not leave any room for ambiguity. But, we are seeing perpetrators use this as yet another tool of coercion and control. So, statutory right to custody. So, different immigration officers interpret this in different ways. One of the most common interpretations I have seen is that the requirement is met if a woman can produce a care and protection order from the family court and a signed statement from the other parent agreeing to allow the child to live in New Zealand if residency is approved. So time and time again, we see perpetrators of abuse use this to exert incredibly unreasonable control and power over a woman. So basically they'll say, well, I will give my signed approval, provided you ... lift the protection order. you know, pay me some money, whatever the terms are. And we all know a woman will do anything for her child, right? Absolutely anything. So, the system should not allow perpetrators of violence to exert this control over a woman, and yet the system allows it. And immigration officers go, well, I'm just applying the rules, so there's nothing I can do about it. So if the man doesn't give approval in this situation, the only option for a woman is to go through an expensive guardianship proceeding in the family court. And while she might be able to apply for legal aid, there are very few lawyers that will do this work on legal aid, because it is really poorly paid compared to if they accepted the work privately. If they accepted the work privately, they might get, I don't know, around $20,000 for a guardianship proceeding, right? And they might get, I mean, it's still a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but in comparison, right? So we're finding that it's really very few people, very few family lawyers that will take on this sort of work through legal aid. And it's not right that only those who can afford to pay for a lawyer can afford justice. It is really not right. Certainly not right that only those who can afford to can seek immigration security for themselves and their children. Okay, I could probably just talk for hours, and I'm aware that you've got other things that we want to talk about. But does anyone have any questions? Oh, Silvana, yes, social workers can provide, so we can do it at Shama. Yes, 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 of course. And the wonderful Faria does write them. And but so just on that, there isn't a plain English guide to these visas, let alone any explanation I've seen in any other language. And can you imagine, I mean, I can only imagine, because I've not been a victim of intimate partner violence, but I have talked to women who are, like you will have, and I kind of think, just trying to put myself for a moment in their shoes, and actually I can't, because I don't know what it is like. I can empathize, but I don't know what it is like. But I can just sort of think, if I don't speak English, I'm in this violent relationship, I'm really worried about my children, I'm completely dependent on this man for everything. He controls the money, he controls a roof over my head, he controls, the people that I talk to, he controls my internet use, he, completely dependent on him for everything. And yet, for me to leave and to just completely step out into a huge unknown. And we know this is why it can take women 6, 7, 8 more times to leave an abusive relationship. They might, I don't recognize this in the women that I talk to. I don't know many people that have actually looked up the visa and sort of looked at the requirements, right? Most people say they don't know about the visa when they come to community law. But just imagine, even for a moment, if they were to find out that there is this visa and they look at that criteria, they look at that daunting list of agencies that can provide evidence of family violence. If I was in that situation, I would like to, see as many organizations on there as possible. I would like to, maybe I've heard of Shama. I just think all the people that can give this evidence, I think their name should be listed there. It is a narrow list, and there is no discretion for immigration officers to consider anyone who's not on that list. Yeah, I just think the system, it makes it unnecessarily hard when it is already exceptionally hard for a woman to leave a relationship of violence. yeah, anyway, any questions? I could seriously keep talking, but I don't want to. I feel like I'm on a little bit of a soapbox, and I don't want to kind of. But there are so many complex issues in this space, and I the women that I've interviewed so far for this research project, there is such a difference in the women who have been able to access good support. So the women that are in Hamilton, who have connected with Shama, they have, on the whole, what seems to be a much more positive, if you can call being a survivor of family violence positive, but recovering and getting through the immigration and family court processes, they have a much better experience on the whole than women outside of Hamilton. Not completely, but for the most part. And I think, we probably all know why that is, because Shama provides that kind of sort of one-on-one. They're there, they're responsive. So how can we replicate that everywhere in the country? How can all women access that level of support? Same with, I feel community law Wellington and Hutt Valley, just from the amazing work Sarah Cross-Curry-Hewitt and Megan did years ago in setting that service up, and we've been able to continue it. But as far as I know, we're really the only specialist community law centre in the country that does that. So what do other people in other areas do? There's no legal aid available for immigration advice other than refugee asylum claims. So how do they get the support they need?
Dhilum,
Yeah.
sorry, I just wanted to talk to what you just said. I think what we need is because what we have in Shama is full-time workers that they can advocate and work along with clients, so we need to keep putting pressure for funding across the country so other ethnic women in any region in New Zealand can have that support, because Shakti does an amazing work in terms of providing the safe house. But that walking alongside, going into the court and speaking when someone is feeling vulnerable is, I think, what it makes the difference. But and because we have to be finishing this segment,
yes.
I do want to bring to people's attention that I think is really important, that list that Dhilum was talking in terms of criteria for the visa is really hard. But it's even worse for countries if you come from countries like from Latin America or Europe or the US or many countries of Asia, where women don't face a stigma, because then it becomes even harder to get the visa. So the amount of family violence visa that they have got declined for women who are not from countries like Pakistan or Afghanistan, where people know that there is a lot of shame and stigma from the government down, make it incredibly difficult for women from other parts of the world where there is a little bit more progressive, but doesn't mean that they will have the support. Or maybe it's because they made their life here in New Zealand and they want to stay here and they get deprived that rights just because they experience violence. So there is a lot to advocate in terms of family violence visas and the immigration system. So thank you, Dhilum, so much for the work that you are doing. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and maybe just one really final comment in conclusion, Te Arere Kura recognizes the importance of having a culturally responsive services. And, that is us, right? Who's going to design that and work out what that is and how these vulnerable women can be supported. That is us, that's all of us. So special huge mihi to Silvana, your whole team, for the work that you are doing, bringing everyone together and talking about these issues. And we have our lovely kind of collective strength and all wanting that same thing of supporting vulnerable women and ethnic communities. So thank you for bringing us together.
Thank you so much for the insights, Dhilum. It was very eye-opening for me, especially, and I wish we had some more time to, just keep talking to you. So what we can do now, we're almost at the end. We just left with 5 more minutes. So we can quickly gather up for a group picture. So all of you who do not have your cameras on can maybe do that.